Welcome to Lost Among the Stars, the Season 1 finale, written by Brian M. Brumbaugh. The sky had shifted. The stars above Proxima Centauri B burned with a quiet intensity, and the moons hung like sentinels over the quiet camp. Inside the cat, Ayla sat on her bedroll, barefoot and restless, slowly working a knot from her braid. The shuttle's lights were dimmed to an amber glow. Her tools were packed, her maps were sorted. Everything was clean and organized and ready, and yet sleep refused to come.
Estimated arrival of the JD-1 in 9 hours, 4 minutes, and 37 seconds.
They announced from its cradle on her vest, its voice calm as always. Ayla let the brush fall from her hand and groaned.
Vey, that was the least helpful thing you could have said right now.
She fell backward, arms sprawled across the bedroll, eyes fixed on the ceiling.
Great! No way I'm sleeping now!
Outside, a wind whispered through the grasses. Inside, time dragged. Ayla eventually gave up on pretending to rest. She pulled on her vest, lit the panel light at the table, and called up her display. Maps and readouts flickered across the makeshift workstation beneath the awning. They floated nearby. Bob materialized a few feet away, arms folded, watching her pace.
What if they're not who they say they are?
She muttered.
What if they want control of everything? What if they try to lock down the array, or the drift fault?
Then I suggest you snarl and bite.
Bob said dryly.
It usually works for Peck.
She glared at him, but couldn't help the small, nervous smile that slipped through. They pulsed softly.
I've completed a secondary scan of the JD-1's systems. There is one anomaly.
Ayla paused.
What kind of anomaly? There is a Zephyrix device on board, low signature but active. It appears to be neural control technology, an influence artifact, used historically for population suppression. I have blocked its external transmission, but the intent of its presence is unknown.
Her stomach tightened.
So what? They're bringing a leash?
Possibly.
Vey's glow dimmed for a moment.
Or possibly they don't know what they've brought.
Bob turned to her.
Sleep would still be advisable. You'll need your mind sharp either way.
Ayla didn't respond. She stared at the sidearm resting on the edge of the table, then the soft flicker of the cat's interior lights. The wind outside never stopped. Dawn came like a whisper, soft gold stretching across the horizon. Ayla tightened her braid and laced her boots with steady hands, though her eyes were rimmed in exhaustion. She gathered 2 water pouches, paused, then put them back down.
Vey, anything new?
She asked.
Yes.
The orb brightened.
Happy birthday, Ayla. The JD-1 is now on final descent. Estimated touchdown in less than 10 minutes.
Ayla blinked.
Oh, right. That's today.
Bob appeared beside her, flickering into form near the table.
Happy birthday. I've upgraded your sidearm. It now includes a wide disbursement feature. Please arm yourself.
She raised an eyebrow.
Thanks, Bob. But this doesn't seem like the best way to meet our guests.
Vey's glow shifted to a warning red.
Ayla, arm yourself. Now.
She turned to face the orb fully.
I have just confirmed the control artifact is powered. It is Zephyrix designed, calibrated to human neurochemistry. Intent is unknown, but suppression of free will is its primary historical use. I have disabled its signal capacity, but its presence remains a threat.
Ayla slowly picked up her sidearm and clipped it to her belt. It felt heavier today.
Okay, precautionary paranoia it is.
You're learning.
Bob muttered. The sound of approaching engines rolled over the horizon like thunder wrapped in dust. Ayla stepped outside the cat, into the light. Peck stood to her left, tall and regal, feathers rustling in the morning breeze. Bob flickered beside her, arms behind his back like a soldier awaiting orders. Vey pulsed calmly from her chest. The planes trembled as the JD-1 came into view, sleek, silver, scarred from years of travel. It descended carefully, the grass flattening in waves as its landing struts pressed into the soil. Ayla squared her shoulders.
This is it,
She said quietly.
I hope they're nice.
Inside the New Hope, the crew crowded into the main corridor, eyes trained on the forward display. Elara Voss stood at the front, one hand resting on the doorframe.
John and I will disembark. Assess the situation. The rest of you stay inside until we confirm it's safe.
Mallory stepped forward.
That's not fair. She's just a child, alone on this planet for who knows how long, and we're acting like she's a threat?
Eve nodded.
If we go in treating her like a problem, we'll be the problem.
Several murmurs of agreement rippled through the crew. Dawn Shepherd crossed her arms.
If she's to be one of us,
Dawn said.
then we walk down together. She deserves that.
Elara hesitated. She glanced at John, then at the faces surrounding her, determined, unwavering.
All right,
Elara said.
we go together.
The New Hope settled into the earth with a final hiss of steam and metal. The cargo ramp lowered, revealing a wall of sunlight and dust. The woman took a few steps forward, stopping at the edge of the ramp.
Hi, Ayla.
She said, her voice firm but not unkind.
I'm Commander Elara Voss. I see. You're not alone.
Her gaze flicked cautiously toward Peck.
Is that creature safe?
Ayla giggled and gave Peck a fond pat.
Yep, that's Peck. She's my friend. I wouldn't be here if she hadn't saved me a time or two.
Before Elara could respond, a lanky teen with unruly hair and a grin too big for his face stepped forward.
I knew it. I knew she'd be cool. Can I pet her? Does she bite?
Eddie,
Elara's voice sharpened.
please control yourself. Let's begin with introductions.
She gestured to the crew forming a half circle behind her.
This is Dawn Shepherd, my first officer. The big guy to my left is John Merrick, our chief engineer, and his assistant, Adam Hurlburt. Hiding behind their mother are the twins, Myra and Laura. They're our botanists. This is Doctor Mallory Keene, chief medical officer. Over there is Naya Solis, our navigator and astrometrics expert. Standing behind her is Eve Stidham, our chef and nurse in training. And finally,
She gave the teen a sharp look.
our youngest crew member and helmsman, Eddie Beam.
Ayla beamed.
I'm so glad to meet all of you.
She swept her arm back toward her side.
My crew is a bit smaller. The blue guy is Bob. He's an AI my mom programmed for me. He's been with me since the accident on the USS Donald J. Trump. She glanced fondly at Peck. The big fluffy bird is Peck. I raised her from a tiny chick after we stumbled into each other.
She tapped the softly glowing orb on her vest.
And this is Vey, another AI I met here on the planet.
A tense look passed between Elara and John. Barely a flicker, but Ayla caught it. Her eyes narrowed.
Vey is harmless,
She said sharply.
She's helped me survive here. A lot.
Vey's voice hummed from her vest.
I have supported Ayla in over 312 critical scenarios. I am designed to interface with planetary systems and provide navigation support. I pose no threat.
Bob interjected, arms folded as he looked directly at Elara.
Vey has been helpful in all aspects of Ayla's survival and is completely trustworthy.
I did detect Zephyrix technology aboard your ship.
Vey added.
I wish to clarify your intent in bringing it here.
The mood shifted sharply. A hush fell over the group. Even the breeze seemed to pause. Ayla stepped forward, hands raised.
Vey's just looking out for me. I know you're here as friends, right?
John, ever the blunt one, grunted.
You're a precocious little thing, aren't you?
That's when Peck stepped forward with a loud thump, her massive talons digging into the dirt between Ayla and John. Her tail feathers flared, and her eyes locked onto the engineer like a hawk sizing up prey.
Whoa, girl.
Ayla pressed a hand to Peck's side.
It's okay. We're just trying to get to know each other.
Peck didn't move, but she backed up half a step and stood firm beside her human.
Wow!
Eddie shouted.
That was awesome! I wish I had a Peck.
Eddie,
Elara snapped.
control yourself, or return to the ship.
Eddie slumped, the grin fading as he retreated behind Naya. Whispers rippled through the crew. A few of them eyed the bird warily. Mallory whispered something to Dawn, who looked conflicted. Elara cleared her throat.
Ayla, do you think it would be best if Peck waited somewhere else while we get acquainted? Just to avoid any accidents.
Bob stepped forward before Ayla could respond.
Absolutely not. The bird is an excellent judge of character. And she stays.
Agreed.
Faye echoed. A beat of silence. Ilara's jaw tensed, but she let it go.
All right,
She said.
perhaps we can talk under the awning? Share a bit about each other?
Ayla nodded.
Sure, this way.
They walked toward the camp, the crew murmuring behind them. As they reached the shaded space beneath the stitched hide awning, Ayla gestured toward the low table and wooden benches.
Make yourselves at home.
She said.
It's not fancy, but it's safe.
Elara sat across from her while the others fanned out, some hovering nearby, others exploring the edges of the camp.
Dawn,
Elara called.
take a small group and explore the area. 5 clicks, radius. Be thorough.
Bob frowned.
That's not advisable. There are creatures here that would love to have you for lunch.
John cracked his knuckles.
We can handle ourselves.
Eve,
Elara continued.
could you please prepare a meal? Something warm. We'll eat when the others return.
With assignments given, Elara turned back to Ayla, her posture softening slightly. Ayla told her story carefully, how she'd barely made it to the shuttle before the Trump exploded, scavenged from the broken world around her, how she'd learned to hunt, to hide, to survive. She spoke of Peck's meeting, how they bumped into each other, and they bonded as Peck grew, of the long nights alone, of the first time she cried herself to sleep in the cold belly of the cat. But she said nothing of the Zephyrix. In turn, Elara shared their own escape, the destruction of the Test-9, the retrofitting of their shuttle into something barely spaceworthy, their slow crawl across the void, piecing the New Hope together out of necessity and desperation. When they finished, the silence stretched between them, not unfriendly, just heavy.
Ayla,
Elara said at last.
I know Vey is Zephyrix tech. How did you come to possess it?
I was left behind.
They answered calmly.
When the Zephyrix abandoned this world, I remained dormant. I was reactivated by Ayla's proximity and bonded to her. I am mostly just a navigation tool.
Ilara's eyes narrowed slightly.
Mostly.
She didn't press further, but the doubt was clear. She sat back, hands folded.
Final question, Ayla. Do we need to wear our sidearms? Are you a threat to me or my crew?
Ayla didn't blink. She slowly unholstered her weapon and placed it on the table between them.
Absolutely not,
She said.
I'm just glad to have people to talk to again.
Before anyone could respond, footsteps came pounding across the dirt. Eddie! He skidded to a halt, panting and excited.
We found a river.
He blurted.
There were nets set up, and all kinds of plants along the banks, and you should have seen the dinosaurs.
He turned to Ayla, wide-eyed.
Do you get to hunt them? Or pet them?
Ayla laughed.
Peck helps me hunt, and the herbivores? Some of them can be petted.
Eddie's face lit up.
So cool. I wish I had been here with you instead of stuck in that tin can.
You learned to fly that tin can.
Elara reminded him.
I know, but still, this place is awesome. Oh, and we brought back some fish. I hope that's okay?
Ayla nodded.
Of course. You want to help me clean them?
Do I? Heck yeah. Will you show me how?
She grinned.
Let's go.
Near the fire pit, Ayla showed Eddie how to clean the fish. They shared laughs, traded stories, and threw scraps to Peck, who now seemed to regard the boy with mild approval.
She'll love you forever if you keep feeding her.
Ayla said.
I'm totally okay with that.
Eddie grinned. From the table, several crew members watched them. Even the twins, who had kept their distance, seemed intrigued. Dinner was simple but hot: fresh fish, rehydrated grains, and a few foraged greens. Ayla moved among the crew, learning names, asking questions, laughing at their stories. But Elara and John, they watched, always watched. They were polite, cordial, but they weren't just here to be friends. And Ayla knew it. When the moons rose high and the fire burned low, Elara finally stood.
It's been a long day,
She said.
We'll rest now. There'll be more time tomorrow.
Ayla nodded.
I'm glad you're here.
She looked around at the faces glowing in the firelight. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. But trust would take time, and tomorrow would come fast. Back in the safety of the KAT, Ayla moved around her small quarters with a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in ages. The floor still creaked beneath her bare feet. The shuttle's old frame hummed with quiet warmth, and the gentle rhythm of the night winds whispered through the open ramp. Yet everything felt different. Better. She rolled out her bedding, humming to herself as she folded her fur blanket back, then perched on the edge of the bed with a huge smile.
Did you see Eddie's face when Peck snapped at John?
She said, laughing softly.
I thought he was going to explode.
Bob flickered into view across from her, arms crossed, one eyebrow arched.
I saw it. I also saw a young man with absolutely no filter and a dangerously impulsive sense of trust.
Come on,
Ayla said.
He's fun. Finally someone who talks fast enough to keep up with me.
He also talks without thinking, a liability in any formal operation.
Vey pulsed to life from her vest mount, voice as serene as ever.
He appears emotionally genuine, loyal, perhaps excessively so. I calculate an 83.9% chance that he would disobey a direct order from Commander Voss in order to assist you if you asked.
That's good, right?
Bob didn't answer. Ayla plopped down on her back, pulling the blanket over her legs.
What about the twins?
She asked, frowning now.
They barely looked at me. I smiled. I waved. I offered to show them my seed vault. They looked at me like I had 6 heads.
They are teenagers,
Bob said, as though the word explained the entire human condition.
They're also botanists.
Vey added.
I ran comparative analysis during dinner. Myra and Laura Shepard possess high intelligence quotients, but low openness indexes. Their verbal cues indicate discomfort in unfamiliar social settings, or disinterest in building relationships outside of their sibling dynamic.
In other words,
Ayla muttered.
They don't like me.
Not yet,
Bob corrected.
but that can change. Give it time.
Vey disagreed.
Their compatibility profile with Ayla is low. Friendship is not impossible, but statistically unlikely.
Ayla sighed and turned over, facing the wall.
Fine. No twin friends. I've got a giant murder bird. Who needs people?
There was a pause before she continued, quieter now.
Elara and John, they don't like me either. I could feel it. They kept asking questions like they were checking a list. Not like they wanted to know me, just what I might be hiding.
Because they suspect you are hiding something,
Bob said flatly.
which, to be clear, you are.
Ayla scowled over her shoulder.
I'm not hiding anything that's any of their business.
I agree.
Vey said.
The likelihood that they will pressure you to conform to their command structure is extremely high, currently projecting at 97.2% within the next 5 days.
Ayla sat back up, eyes wide.
They're going to try to make me part of their crew?
They may present it as an invitation
Bob said.
or a necessity, but their goal will be the same: integration and control.
Ayla looked down at her hands.
What if I don't want to be part of their crew? What if they're supposed to be part of mine?
Neither I responded immediately.
Don't make any decisions yet.
Bob said finally.
We observe, we analyze, and we prepare.
I still recommend withholding all Zephyrix information.
Vey added.
until such time as loyalty metrics shift.
Ayla nodded, then lay back again. The blanket pulled up to her chin.
Okay,
She said softly.
but I still like Eddie.
Meanwhile, aboard the New Hope, the mess deck had quieted. Most of the crew had returned to their assigned quarters along the corridor, the fatigue of arrival and emotional overwhelm settling into silence. Elara Voss sat at the galley table, a steaming cup of nutrient broth in her hand, untouched. Across from her, John Merrick leaned back in his chair, his arms folded, his eyes still on the hatch that led out into the dark.
Half the crew's ready to build her a birthday cake and hand over command.
John muttered.
She's charming.
Elara said.
She's dangerous.
He countered.
She's 9. She's 9 with 2 sentient AIs and a pet velociraptor. That hologram, Bob, ran tactical countermeasures on me the moment I stepped off the ramp. The orb AI, Vey, accessed our comms frequencies mid-landing.
Elara sighed and finally took a sip.
They're protecting her. That much is obvious.
They're programmed to protect her,
John corrected.
and that makes them unpredictable. You saw how the hologram cut me off the moment I questioned the orb. They operate like a security net. No holes, no hesitation.
She didn't tell us anything about the technology she's found.
Elara said, narrowing her eyes.
And she danced around everything related to how she's survived out here. Hunting and cooking is one thing, but she has access to power, advanced navigation, climate control, and, if I'm right, ship systems.
She has control of that Zephyric site.
John said.
She's the gatekeeper. We both know it.
Elara leaned forward, lowering her voice.
So how do we get her to give it up?
John's face was unreadable.
You want ideas?
I want options.
He thought for a moment.
Option 1. Isolate her. Separate her from the AI and the bird. That won't be easy. She doesn't go anywhere without at least one of them.
Elara nodded.
We could assign her a guided tour of the New Hope. Keep her talking while someone else explores the camp.
She's not stupid. She'd catch on in minutes.
Then what do you suggest?
Elara asked. John's voice dropped lower.
Create a crisis. Nothing major. Just enough to shake her. Something that makes her need us. Something that puts the AI at a disadvantage. Maybe Peck gets injured. Maybe comms go down and she panics. We come in with solutions. She leans on us.
You want to manipulate a 9-year-old girl?
Elara said, but her tone wasn't disapproving. John didn't blink.
You want to control her. I'm just telling you how.
Elara tapped her fingers against the mug.
If this goes south, we lose the crew. Mallory's already half ready to adopt her. And Eddie would mutiny if we so much as made her cry.
We don't make her cry.
John said.
We make her need us.
A long silence passed between them. Then Elara stood.
We'll wait. 2 days. If she doesn't start to fold into the crew, we test your theory.
John gave a single cold nod.
And if it doesn't work?
Then,
Elara said, her voice low and sharp.
we remind her that she's not the only one who knows how to survive.
The corridors of the New Hope were silent in the early hours, the ship's systems humming quietly beneath the floor grates. Dim overhead lights glowed in standby mode, casting long shadows across the metal bulkheads. Elara Voss stood in the small galley, sipping a mug of black synth coffee, the steam rising in slow spirals. John Merrick entered without a word, rolling his shoulders beneath his vest. His eyes were alert. He hadn't slept much either.
Elara,
He said simply. She turned, expression sharp.
John, I have a new plan for today.
He raised a brow.
I'm listening.
We ask Ayla to give us a tour. Places she's discovered, the ones she thinks are worth seeing. We frame it as a goodwill gesture. Curiosity, nothing more.
John's smirk was slow and knowing.
Perfect. It'll tell us exactly where she stands and what she's willing to show us.
Elara nodded, her eyes cold with calculation.
Exactly.
But before they could speak further, the low whir of hydraulics echoed through the ship. They turned in unison just as the New Hope's main ramp began to lower. A blur of motion bounded out before the doors were fully open.
Ayla!
Eddie's voice rang out like a cannon shot in the quiet morning. Inside the cat, Ayla stirred beneath her fur blanket as the sound of pounding feet echoed through the shuttle's hull.
Bob,
She murmured, still half asleep.
what's that noise?
Bob's voice chimed in, droll as always.
The small human boy band appears to want to board our ship. One member, highly excitable, is currently screaming your name.
Ayla snorted and rubbed her eyes.
Go ahead and lower the ramp.
The cat's ramp creaked open, golden light flooding into the shuttle. As soon as the gap was wide enough, a massive feathery blur streaked past Ayla. Peck darted down the ramp and, without slowing, vaulted clean over Eddie's head before vanishing into the woods in a streak of firelight-coloured feathers.
Whoa!
Eddie stumbled backward, eyes wide.
That was amazing!
Ayla emerged behind her, still barefoot and yawning.
Yeah, morning routine. Peck runs off to handle her morning business. She won't be long.
Eddie was still buzzing.
She's so fast.
Even faster when I'm riding her.
Ayla said casually. Eddie's head whipped around.
Wait, what? You ride her? Does she give other people rides? Can I try? Please.
Ayla paused, uncertain.
Maybe when she gets to know you better.
Oh man,
He looked out toward the trees.
I really need a peck.
She smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face.
So, I was hoping
Eddie said, already bouncing on his toes.
maybe we could go exploring today? You mentioned a forest? One that shifts?
The Crystal Forest.
Ayla said.
We can go near it, but not in it. That place is unstable. The crystal formations move in patterns we haven't fully mapped. Kind of like a maze that changes. Easy to get lost. And the dinosaurs?
She added.
Are very real. Big ones. Think angry T-Rex with heat vision.
Eddie's eyes widened, but before he could plead again, Bob's voice cut in.
Listen here, young man. That area is extremely dangerous. Your death would not be a productive use of Ayla's time.
Eddie frowned, clearly disappointed.
Okay, I get it.
He perked up again.
But is there anything else cool you can show me?
From farther up the path, a familiar voice called out.
Ayla,
Elara said, striding forward with John just behind.
please, show us any places you deem special. We'd love to see your world.
Ayla glanced at Bob, who gave her the smallest nod, then turned back to them.
Okay, let me get dressed and grab my gear. Pack rations, scanners, and sidearms. It'll be a full day.
She ducked back inside the KAT. As the ramp began to close behind her, they pulsed softly on her chest.
Elara spoke with deception. Her voice modulation indicates hidden motive.
Bob appeared beside her.
Agreed. I believe they're hoping you'll lead them to Zephyrix sites.
Yes,
They confirmed.
most likely the purpose is assessment, how much you know and what you're concealing.
Ayla chewed her lip.
What do I do?
Take them to the Obsidian Gate.
They said.
It's 4.5 hours on foot. There's nothing left there that will reveal Zephyrix systems. If they believe there's nothing valuable, their pressure may lessen.
Bob added.
It buys us time and reinforces your control over the narrative.
Ayla grinned.
Perfect. Then that's the plan.
Outside, Peck had returned, pecking at the dirt near the fire pit as Eddie crouched beside her, gently scratching her neck.
Elara!
Ayla called as she descended the ramp.
How about the Obsidian Gate? It's a 4.5-hour hike one way if you're up for it.
Elara glanced at John, then turned back with a bright smile.
Awesome. Let's go.
Ayla scanned the group.
Is everyone packed and ready?
John, Mallory, Naya, you're with us.
Elara said quickly.
Everyone else stays behind to set up camp.
Eddie's heart practically broke in front of them.
Wait, what?
he cried out.
I'm not going!
Eddie,
Elara said sternly.
we need you here.
But please, please let me go. I've wanted to see the gate since Ayla mentioned it.
Before Elara could shut him down again, Dawn Shepherd stepped in, arms folded.
Elara, we're fine here. Let him go. He's earned it.
Elara narrowed her eyes. A slow, cold glare passed between the two women.
Fine.
Elara said tightly.
Eddie, you're with us.
Eddie nearly exploded with joy. He ran to Ayla and twirled like a lunatic. Ayla rolled her eyes and mounted Peck, swinging her leg over the saddle she'd hand-stitched from vine and hide.
It's this way,
She called, turning Peck toward the rising sun. Eddie sprinted after them, still wide-eyed.
I really need a peck.
The hike began with low murmurs and crunching boots over alien Earth, the distant sun still climbing through a pale orange sky. The morning was cooler than usual, a dry breeze sweeping down from the ridge ahead, tugging at Ayla's braid and rustling through Peck's feathers. The great bird led the way, proud and silent, her talons finding the best path instinctively. Ayla rode bareback, her legs folded naturally along Peck's sides, her hands loose on the hand-woven reins. Behind her, Elara, John, Mallory, Naya, and a wide-eyed Eddie kept pace, carrying rations, sidearms, and more questions than Ayla liked. John eventually pulled forward to walk beside Ayla, Elara flanking on her other side.
You've done well for yourself.
John said, adjusting his gear.
This place? It's not kind. I've seen trained scouts lose their minds in environments half this hostile.
Ayla shrugged.
It wasn't easy, but I had help.
Elara gave a tight smile.
Vay and Bob, right?
Yep.
Ayla answered, keeping her tone even. John tilted his head.
And the Zephyrix tech you've uncovered. How much of it have you figured out?
Ayla tensed, fingers twitching against the leather reins. Bob's voice came immediately, crisp and direct.
Commander Merrick, may I remind you that Ayla has extended trust to your team. Pressuring her about classified technology is not the best way to nurture that trust.
They added.
You are welcome to observe, but any attempt to coerce information about Zephyrix systems will be flagged and logged.
Elara's expression didn't change, but her voice softened.
We're not trying to interrogate you, Ayla. We just want to understand what you've seen, what you've learned. The Zephyrix are mysterious. Their impact across space isn't insignificant.
I get it.
Ayla replied carefully.
But maybe let's save the big questions for later. You haven't even seen the gate yet.
John smirked, backing off.
Fair enough.
As the terrain shifted, Ayla fell back and walked alongside Naya, who had been mostly quiet since the journey began. She was tall and angular, with short black curls and a sharp, intelligent gaze. Her scanner was constantly in hand, collecting telemetry as they moved.
You like charts?
Ayla asked. Naya blinked, then smiled.
More than most people like cake?
Same.
They shared a laugh.
I used to sit in the KAT at night,
Ayla said.
mapping star patterns with Bob. We couldn't always see clearly with the atmospherics, but when it was clear, you'd be amazed how far you can plot.
Naya nodded, warming.
I've been building astrometric models since I was 10. You ever simulate drift trajectories?
Vay runs real-time drift sim overlays. You want to see?
Naya grinned.
Absolutely.
For a time, the two walked side by side, trading stories of favorite constellations, exoplanet theories, and spacefaring legends like the Adraxis Pathfinders and the Silver Fleet. It was easy and honest, and for the first time that day, Ayla forgot to be suspicious. Then Peck stopped. Like a stone statue, the great bird froze mid-stride, every muscle in her massive frame locked tight. Ayla immediately raised her hand.
Everyone stop! Hide! Now!
Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the urgency in it triggered instant obedience. They dove behind the remains of a massive alien tree, a twisted trunk of dark red bark, wide enough to hide the group. Peck didn't move. Her eyes tracked the tree line ahead, and then they saw it. Out from the brush emerged a creature straight from a nightmare. Towering, scaly, and broad-shouldered, its massive talons slicing through the brush with terrifying ease. It resembled a tyrannosaur in silhouette, but with more jagged lines, 6 glowing blue eyes, each independently scanning. Its skin shimmered like oil in the sunlight, scales refracting light like crystal shards. Faint ridges of light pulsed along its throat and sides, like veins filled with plasma. It was hunting. Ahead, an alien deer bolted, long-legged and sleek, its skin dappled with bioluminescent stripes. The predator launched after it, tearing through the brush with shocking speed. Ayla ducked her head as it passed, less than 50 meters away. The ground shook as it ran. In 3 strides, it closed the gap. With a sickening crunch, it caught the deer in its jaws. The creature gave a single, hollow cry, then fell silent. The beast turned and slowly lumbered away, the lifeless deer dangling from its jaws, vanishing into the trees once more. No one spoke until it was gone. Ayla let out a long breath.
Okay, it's safe now. We can continue.
Peck
Eddie whispered in awe.
is like an early warning system.
She is
Ayla said with a smile.
one of the main reasons I'm still alive.
She has saved Ayla's life on 27 documented occasions.
They noted.
And likely several more unrecorded.
Bob added.
Peck is invaluable.
They walked on in reverent silence for a while after that. The obsidian gate came into view as the suns dipped lower in the sky. It rose from the blackened terrain like the exposed bones of a long-dead titan. Massive, ancient, and otherworldly. Half buried beneath volcanic sediment, the crescent-shaped structure arched sharply upward, black as space itself. Its obsidian surface shimmered like it had just rained, always wet, always gleaming. Veins of crimson light pulsed slowly beneath the smooth exterior, like molten blood flowing under glass. The pulses weren't chaotic, they were rhythmic, intentional, alive. Signal energy radiated from it in unseen waves. Even John stopped to stare.
By the stars.
He muttered. Ayla led them to the threshold, where a section of the crescent wall had folded inward. Her last visit still imprinted on the doorway. Inside, the gate felt cathedral-like. The ceiling arched high above into shadow. The walls were lined with massive consoles formed of stone and some metal alloy, fused seamlessly. Columns of light hovered in mid-air, translucent towers displaying alien scripts, planetary maps, rotating holograms of systems no human had ever charted. They were stunned. Elara's eyes darted over every surface, every symbol, every glyph. Then she saw it. The pedestal at the room's center, a perfect cradle.
Ayla,
She said, stepping forward.
place Vey in the cradle. I want to see what happens.
Her tone had shifted, firmer, sharper, almost a command. Bob materialized immediately.
Commander, there is no reason to present yourself this way. Ayla would not have brought you here if she were hiding something.
Confirmed.
They added.
We invited you here to share.
Elara blinked, caught off guard by her own aggression. She straightened, smoothing her tone.
Apologies. Sometimes the commander in me gets ahead of herself.
John tried to pick up the pieces.
She's just excited. We want to see what this place can do.
The tension was thick. Ayla felt it and decided to cut it.
No biggie,
She said lightly.
I'm placing Vey now.
She gently removed the orb from her vest and set it into the pedestal. The effect was instantaneous. The room lit up. A holographic star map erupted from the floor, swirling planets and systems forming in mid-air. Names scrolled across in alien script, then translated into human-readable text via Bob's overlays. John stepped closer.
Are these all the places the Zephyrix have been?
Some.
They answered.
Others are known by network imprint but have not been visited.
Ilara's brow furrowed.
Yet?
Vay's glow dimmed slightly.
No, the Zephyrix are no longer active. Proxima Centauri B was their last known settlement.
They spent another hour inside, scanning, recording, marveling. Ayla kept close to Bob. She knew they weren't done asking questions. Eventually, she spoke up.
We should head back. We don't want to be out after dark.
The hike back began in silence. Even Eddie seemed awed into stillness. About halfway through, Ayla walked beside Mallory. They spoke about the planet's flora, how some of the vines had mild anesthetic properties, how Bob had categorized over 130 edible plant types, some with strong medicinal potential.
I've got the full records,
Ayla said.
You're welcome to them.
I'd love that.
Mallory replied.
You've done more here in a year than we managed in 5.
Later, during a water break, Eddie slid in beside Ayla, smiling sheepishly.
Thanks for bringing us out here,
he said. Peck stepped up behind her and gave Ayla a gentle nudge. Then she turned her head to Eddie and leaned in. Ayla's eyebrows lifted.
I think she's offering you a ride.
Eddie's jaw dropped.
No way! Really?
I think so. Go ahead. Just be respectful and hold on tight. Let Peck do the work.
Eddie approached slowly, hands out. Peck remained perfectly still. With Ayla's guidance, he climbed onto her back, grabbed the reins, and settled into position. Peck started walking, then trotting. Then, without warning, she bolted. Eddie screamed with delight as she tore through the grasslands, leaving a wake of dust and laughter.
She's not gonna hurt him, right?
Elara asked, nervous.
If she wanted to,
Ayla said, smiling,
she would have done it already.
15 minutes later, they returned, Peck launching over a fallen tree like a rocket, Eddie whooping and hollering like it was the best moment of his life. She slid to a stop at Ayla's feet, feathers flared, perfectly composed. Eddie tumbled off, breathless, eyes wide.
That was the best thing I've ever done.
And all the way back to camp, that's all he talked about. Campfire smoke drifted lazily into the night air, curling into the violet sky where the twin moons had begun their slow rise. The flickering light bathed the camp in amber glow, alien and familiar all at once. The smell of roasted root vegetables, fish, and something sweet from Eve's makeshift dessert rations filled the air. Ayla moved between small groups, laughing easily, asking questions, answering others. She'd already traded jokes with Eddie, admired one of Laura's pressed leaf samples, and was now deep in conversation with Naya about orbital decay paths of rogue planets. Even the twins, normally aloof and distant, were smiling. At the far edge of the circle, Elara and John sat quietly beside the fire, their meal untouched. Elara leaned back, arms crossed, her gaze locked on Ayla.
She's infectious.
She muttered.
In personality, she's winning over our crew at an alarming rate.
She had the twins laughing.
John said.
You realize that's a borderline miracle?
Elara didn't smile.
This can't continue unchecked. I know she's hiding something about the Zephyrix.
Agreed.
John's voice was low.
There's no way she's just camping out here on top of ancient tech like it's a playground. That gate, the AI, the maps. She's connected. She knows how to use it.
I've been reviewing the scans,
Elara said.
The pedestal in the gate. It's neuroresponsive. Neurosync technology. I'm convinced she's already formed a bond.
John glanced over at Ayla, now animatedly retelling a story about getting stuck in a hollow tree during a thunderstorm. Then we have a problem.
You think the neural link can be overridden?
Elara asked.
I don't know,
John replied.
but if we try to take her AIs offline directly, we'll trip every failsafe those systems have. That hologram doesn't blink.
We'd be caught.
Elara said, nodding.
And if we lose the crew's trust now, we'd never get it back.
They were quiet for a long time. Finally, John asked,
So what do we do?
Elara's eyes narrowed.
We make her want to disconnect them. Just for a little while. A test.
John leaned in, curious.
You think we can actually get her to do that?
We don't need to convince her. We just need to nudge her logic in the right direction.
Go on.
John said, intrigued.
We fake an external signal.
Elara began.
Something dangerous. Something unfamiliar. Something the AIs can't identify.
John was nodding already.
Something we claim is interfering with our systems, scrambling comms, disrupting sensors.
We sell it as a risk to Vey and Bob.
She continued.
We convince Ayla that the signal might damage them if they stay active in range. Make her believe it's safer to put them into temporary isolation, like sleep mode or containment.
And the only safe place,
John added,
would be aboard the New Hope, under shielded conditions. Our shielded conditions.
Exactly.
But Vey might detect the fakery.
John warned.
That orb's smarter than all our systems combined.
It's why we don't inject a fake signal.
Elara said.
We let her see it in our scans. We show her false readouts we've pre-generated, data that looks authentic. We create a visualized anomaly, broadcast on a closed loop.
And Bob?
Elara's eyes hardened.
We appeal to protocol. Say we don't want a conflict between AIs, ours and hers. Suggest that deactivation for a few hours will prevent systemic instability. Make it sound like our AI systems are vulnerable. She won't want to risk harming them.
John let out a low whistle.
That's cold.
That's command,
Elara said flatly. John leaned back, thinking it over.
We'll need time to prep the loop. Maybe 2 hours in the morning to set up the projections. And someone Ayla already trusts needs to be the one to walk her through the threat. Elara, if I try it?
She'll know,
Elara said.
But not if Mallory brings it up. Or Naya, someone she already feels safe with.
John tapped his finger against the edge of his cup.
We get her to agree to a 3-hour isolation window. We claim it's temporary, for safety. Then we do a deep diagnostic scan on both AI cores the second they're offline.
We look for control pathways,
Elara said.
Command protocols. Neural imprint maps.
And if we find them?
Then we break them.
John looked over at Ayla again. She was now sharing a stick-roasted root with Eddie, giggling at something absurd he'd said.
She's a kid, Elara. A weird, brave, brilliant little kid.
She's also in control of technology that could change the trajectory of human expansion,
Elara replied.
That makes her a threat, even if she doesn't mean to be.
A pause.
You think it'll work?
John asked. Elara watched Ayla smile, the firelight dancing across her face.
We're about to find out.
The New Hope buzzed with quiet life as morning took hold. The suns were rising fast, bathing the plains in pale gold. Back at camp, the crew had already settled into their morning routines. Ayla and Eddie were laughing near the edge of the river, tossing thick-skinned alien fruits, round and ruby red, like twisted pomegranates, for Peck to chase and return. She bounded across the grass like a missile, her feathers flaring, beak gently delivering each fruit with canine devotion. Eve stirred a pot of stew at the stove under their new awning, having already collected the morning fish. Mallory conducted routine scans, checking blood pressure and oxygenation levels, while Adam sat cross-legged under the camp's new communal awning, sketching floor plans in the dust with a stylus. Everything felt normal, which is why Ayla didn't like it when Elara approached with that too smooth smile.
Ayla,
She said.
Would you be interested in a proper tour of the New Hope? I thought you might enjoy seeing the inside of our operations. Systems, layout, tech. We've got a few areas I think you'll love.
Ayla hesitated. Her instincts bristled, but curiosity and Eddie's sudden cheer pushed the scales.
Can I come?
Eddie asked.
You have to see the bridge, Ayla. The chairs recline and everything.
Ayla chuckled.
Okay, sure.
They made their way to the shuttle. As they approached the ramp, Elara glanced at Peck, who stood beside Ayla like a feathered guardian.
Ayla,
She said lightly,
the corridors are narrow inside. It might be best if Peck waits out here. Just to keep her from getting spooked.
Ayla paused. Peck never stayed behind, but the others were watching. She didn't want to make it a scene.
All right, Peck, stay.
Peck gave a low trill, uncertain. Ayla whispered,
It's okay, I'll be quick.
Inside, the moment she crossed the threshold, the ramp began to rise. Ayla turned fast.
Why are you shutting the ramp?
John was waiting just inside.
Just to make sure Peck stays out. It's okay.
Bob's voice came through her earpiece like a whisper.
Myself and Vay will monitor you. If anything arises, we can override their door. Peck will enter.
Still uneasy, Ayla nodded. They started the tour, the galley, the medbay, astrometrics, Ayla's favourite, where rotating celestial charts filled the walls. She even smiled at Naya, who was working the interface. For a moment, she relaxed. And then they reached the bridge. John and Elara moved toward the main display, huddling.
Ayla,
Elara said.
come take a look at this and tell me what you think.
Ayla approached, Eddie at her side. The screen pulsed with chaotic signals, overlapping, stuttering, like static caught in a neural storm.
That looks like a corrupted signal,
Ayla said, frowning.
It looks like your ship AI, while simple, is interfering with Bob and possibly Vay.
John nodded.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Elara turned to her with concern.
We should figure out how to handle this. It could damage them.
Bob's voice whispered urgently in her ear.
Ayla, please exit their ship. This readout is not correct. The data is false.
Ayla stepped back.
I'm not sure. Let me go ask Bob.
There's no time.
Elara said quickly.
I think it's affecting him already.
John leaned in.
Ayla, can you shut him down remotely to save him?
That's when Vay glowed red on her vest.
Ayla, please exit this ship immediately. I am detecting deception. Elara and John are trying to isolate you from Bob and I.
Ayla turned to run, but a hand clamped around her arm. She twisted, staring up into John's grimacing face.
Let me go!
She shouted. Eddie shouted,
Hey!
and kicked John square in the shin. John staggered, but Elara was already raising her stun baton. Crack. Eddie slumped like a puppet with cut strings, with a single strike from Elara. Ayla screamed. John clamped a hand over her mouth and dragged her, thrashing, toward the holding cells deep in the belly of the ship. The halls echoed with the sound of Ayla's muffled cries, and something else, a new sound, terrifying, Peck's scream. It split the air like thunder, wild, piercing, a sound that turned every head on the ship. Metal rang as talons slammed against the floor, click, clack, click, a rhythm of rage.
She's inside.
John said, panic rising.
I locked the interior hatch.
Elara shouted, following behind with Eddie limp in her arms.
But that I said.
Boom! They made it to the holding cell. John threw Ayla in, locking the door. Elara laid Eddie on a nearby bench and pulled the Zephyrix sync device from her belt. She pressed it against the cell's outer frame. Nothing happened. Then Vay's voice echoed from the hallway speakers.
This device has been rendered non-functional. Your attempt to override a neural bond is unauthorized.
No! No!
Elara pounded the wall.
How do we come back from this, John?
John stared at the flickering red warning lights.
I'm not sure we do. We swung and missed.
Crew members Naya, Mallory, Dawn, even the twins, had now gathered at the hallway outside the cell, watching in stunned silence. Peck's screams continued.
She's going to break through.
Naya whispered.
You hear that?
I put a rotating code on that door.
John muttered.
But I don't know how long it'll hold.
She's going to get in.
Elara said. Ayla stood inside the cell, pressed against the bars.
Release me, and I'll make this stop. Please, you don't have to be scared.
You're manipulating us.
Elara snapped.
We can't let you keep control of that tech.
She can't release it.
Faye replied calmly.
It's for life.
Shut up.
John growled.
One more peep out of you and I'll smash you.
Unlikely.
Faye said.
My chassis is constructed of vibranium. Your best weapons would not cause me harm.
Peck's screams were now joined by something else, a distant hum, a swarm of noise rising like a storm. Elara turned to the portside window, and her blood ran cold. The sky was filled with drone fighters. Hundreds of them, sleek, black, angular, hovering in silent formation above the ship. Lights pulsed along their wings, and every single one of them was watching.
Bob,
Ayla said softly.
is that you?
Yes,
Came Bob's voice over the intercom.
and I would like my captain returned now, please.
Elara backed away from the console.
Oh, God.
John looked between Ayla and the drones.
We're not making it out of this, are we?
We will,
Ayla said gently.
if you let me go.
Peck let out one last bone-shaking shriek. Elara looked around, at her crew, at Eddie still unconscious, at the child in the cell who somehow commanded fleets. She hit the release button. The door hissed open. Peck was there, instantly, talons splayed, wings flared, eyes locked on John.
Peck!
Ayla whispered, stepping forward.
It's okay, I'm okay.
Peck froze. Her beak trembled. Then she turned and leaned her massive head into Ayla's chest with a soft chirp. Ayla turned to Elara.
We're done now.
No one spoke, and above the ship, the drone fleet held position, waiting. Eddie groaned. He stirred on the bench inside the New Hope's corridor, one hand clutching his forehead. Ayla was already kneeling beside him, cradling his shoulders.
Hey,
She whispered.
you're okay, I've got you.
Eddie blinked, eyes adjusting.
Ayla? What happened?
You got knocked in the noggin trying to protect me.
She said, voice tight with emotion.
You shouldn't have had to.
He looked past her, saw Elara standing off to the side, John grim-faced beside her. The tension in the corridor was a physical thing, like a wire stretched too tight. Ayla stood up and took Eddie's hand in hers.
We're leaving here.
She said quietly but firmly.
Wait, what?
He asked, sitting up.
I've seen what they're capable of.
Ayla said.
This isn't about learning or working together. It's about control.
Peck stepped forward as if summoned by her words, her bulk casting a long shadow across the steel floor. The sound of her talons echoed with every step. Ayla helped Eddie to his feet.
You don't have to come, Eddie, but I would like you to.
She added.
But I'm leaving the planet with Bob and Vay. This place isn't safe right now.
Eddie looked around at the stunned crew, Mallory with her mouth slightly open, Naya shifting uncomfortably, Dawn unreadable. Then he turned back to Ayla.
I'm with you, Ayla.
Ayla nodded once. Peck led the way. She moved like a force of nature, slow, deliberate, daring anyone to stop her. None did. Her feathers bristled slightly as they passed John, her beak twitching as if measuring the exact amount of pressure it would take to break his ribs. The corridor cleared. At the hatch, Ayla paused, looked back and simply said,
Goodbye, Elara.
and the ramp lowered. A moment later, Ayla and Eddie disappeared into the daylight, their silhouettes framed by the twin suns, and Peck behind them, as silent as judgment. Back aboard the KAT, the door sealed with a soft hiss behind them. Ayla threw herself into the pilot chair with a frustrated sigh. Bob materialized beside her, arms crossed. Vi hovered from her vest, still glowing red at the edges, its core rotating more quickly than usual.
They tried to trick me,
She said.
They tried to shut you both down, tried to use me to do it.
Expected, but not smart,
Bob said.
and not forgivable.
I have filed the event as a Tier 1 hostility protocol violation.
They added.
I suggest immediate disengagement.
Ayla turned to Eddie, who sat down awkwardly in the co-pilot seat.
I had a plan before they showed up,
She said.
As I said, we were going to leave this planet. The Cygnus array is ready. They aligned our trajectory. There's no reason to stay anymore. Not with them here.
She leaned forward.
Do you still want to come with us?
Eddie blinked.
Leave the planet? Heck yeah. I am up for an adventure.
There's more out there. More than broken crews and hidden agendas. I've seen lots of the maps. I know some of the routes,
She said. He looked out the small window at the New Hope across the grass.
I'm not sure where I belong anymore, but they are always grumpy and in a bad mood.
He admitted.
You belong where you choose.
Ayla said.
This is your call, but I want you with us.
Eddie nodded slowly.
Then yeah, I'm with you, Ayla. Let's go find an adventure.
Bob gave a faint approving hum.
I'll configure the co-pilot interface. He can use the kiddie version.
Hey, blue dude!
Eddie protested.
I can handle the grown-up version.
Noted.
Bob said, without changing tone. Aboard the New Hope, the mood was tense. The crew was gathered in the common area. No one sat near Elara or John. Dawn stood at the front, arms folded.
We need to talk about what just happened,
She said.
and what we do next.
Commander Voss acted to protect the ship.
John said defensively.
No,
Mallory snapped.
she tried to manipulate a child who survived more than any of us, a child who trusted us.
She came with warships in the sky.
Elara said.
She has control of alien drones, a bonded AI, and a creature that could rip us apart. We can't pretend she's not a risk.
You were a risk.
Naya said.
You risked all of us when you locked her in that cell. You didn't just cross a line, you obliterated it.
I agree.
Said Mallory, standing.
Elara Voss should be relieved of command.
Gasps echoed around the room. Dawn looked at the others.
Show of hands.
One by one, Naya, Mallory, Eve, the twins, even Adam, hands went up. Elara turned to John.
They can't do this.
John didn't move.
Elara,
His voice was soft, tired.
I think we already lost this one.
Elara looked around and saw no allies. Dawn stepped forward.
As of now, I'm assuming acting command. Elara, John, you're confined to quarters until further notice, or at least until we come up with a solution.
John made no objection. He simply nodded as he and Elara disappeared down the corridor. As they left the room, Naya turned to the window. The Cygnus array was descending slowly above the plains, casting a vast shadow across the land. The drone fleet that had once filled the sky had now returned to its hidden bays. Its presence was not aggressive, but it was unmistakably dominant. The morning sun stretched long shadows across the plains, golden light reflecting off the hulls of the New Hope and the nearby KAT. A cautious peace had settled over the camp, tense but holding, like a wire no longer pulled taut, but still not entirely slack. Inside the makeshift awning, Dawn Shepherd stood in front of the rest of the crew, Naya, Mallory, Eve, Adam, and the twins. Elara and John were still confined to quarters under light supervision, and no one seemed in a hurry to let them rejoin command decisions.
I'm going to speak with her.
Dawn said. Mallory tilted her head.
Ayla?
Yes,
Dawn confirmed.
I know the last 24 hours have been chaotic. And yes, they, Elara and John, made things worse. But Ayla isn't the enemy. If anything, she's the reason we're alive. I want her to know that, and maybe convince her to stay. Or at least, stay connected.
Do you think she'll listen?
Naya asked.
She's not impulsive,
Dawn said.
She's cautious but fair, and she has a heart under all that survival grit.
She's also got a warbird, a drone army, and 2 AI systems smarter than any of us.
Eve muttered. Dawn smiled faintly.
Exactly why we need her on our side.
A few minutes later, Dawn approached the KAT, walking across the short distance between ships with her hands visible and empty. The ramp was already lowered, the blue glow of the interior casting long shadows on the dry soil.
Permission to come aboard?
she called, pausing at the base of the ramp. Bob appeared in the doorway, his holographic body shimmering in the light.
You're unarmed. That's a good start.
From behind him, Ayla's voice followed.
Come in, Dawn. We were hoping you'd visit.
Dawn climbed the ramp slowly and entered the shuttle. The interior was cozy, crude by starship standards, but lived in. Real. The scent of stew still hung in the air. Tools were arranged with precision, and a small hammock swung lazily from the ceiling where Eddie now sat cross-legged, munching on dried fruit. Peck lay just outside the ship, napping but clearly within earshot. They hovered near Ayla's shoulder, pulsing softly.
Thanks for letting me visit,
Dawn said.
I won't take up too much of your time.
No rush,
Ayla said.
It's good to talk when nobody's shouting.
Dawn nodded, then took a breath.
I came to make a case.
Bob cocked his head.
The diplomatic kind, not the legal kind. Excellent.
I think you already know what I'm going to ask,
Dawn said.
I want you to stay. We need you here. Your knowledge, your systems, even your leadership. They could define what this colony becomes.
Ayla exchanged a glance with Vey and Bob. Eddie paused mid-bite.
I understand,
Ayla said.
but we already have a mission.
To Earth.
Bob added.
To determine what, if anything, remains.
Dawn lowered her voice.
You really think there could be survivors?
Yes.
Vey said.
Probability models indicate a 21% chance of pocketed survival zones, deep shelters, orbital habitats, long-term stasis pods. All possibilities remain.
We owe it to them to look,
Ayla said. Dawn nodded, swallowing disappointment.
I knew you might say that. I don't blame you. Honestly, I admire it. But when you do come back, if you do, I hope you'll still see us as part of your crew. We're not perfect, but we're trying.
I know,
Ayla said.
and you're doing better than most would.
She leaned forward slightly.
I want you to know something,
She said.
There are 2 ships hidden in orbit, the Driftfall and the Nomad Ray, Colony class, fully operational. The Driftfall has modular living districts, agricultural zones, a command dome. The Nomad Ray is even bigger. It was built to preserve entire ecosystems.
Dawn's eyes widened.
You're not just a survivor,
She whispered.
you're the key to everything.
Ayla smiled faintly.
I'm not the key, the tech is, but I know how to open the doors.
She paused.
When I return, I'll help you access those ships. I'll train your crew to use them. That's a promise. However, please do not attempt to approach them. They are set to defend entry.
And Elara and John?
Dawn asked carefully. Ayla looked down, then back up.
Forgive them. They were trying to protect something they didn't understand. Their methods were wrong, dangerous even, but their intent wasn't evil. You're going to need experienced leadership down here.
Bob added.
And to be fair, Elara is a brilliant logistician. Once her paranoia is tempered, she may become essential.
I'll take that under advisement.
Dawn said with a slight smirk. She stood.
Thank you, Ayla, for the promise, and for not blowing us all up when you had every right to. You are wise beyond your years. Well, for sure, the smartest 10-year-old I have ever known.
I'll always come back,
Ayla said.
because you're not just surviving here. You're building. That's what matters. I am excited to see what all you are able to build while I am away.
Eddie stood too.
Can I say something?
Ayla grinned.
Go ahead.
Eddie stepped forward dramatically, raising one hand toward Dawn.
You have been granted provisional ally status by order of Captain Ayla Janeway and the crew of the KAT and the Cygnus Array.
Bob added.
With full benefits, including future intel briefings, gear upgrades, and the occasional dinner invite.
Vey chimed in.
Note: ally status is subject to revocation pending additional betrayals.
Dawn laughed.
Noted. I'll make sure we behave.
She stepped down the ramp, turned back, and gave Ayla a small salute.
Safe travels, Captain.
Ayla returned the gesture.
See you soon, Commander Shepard.
Now inside the command dome of the Cygnus Array, a low, resonant hum vibrated beneath Ayla's boots. Every surface shimmered with readiness, the alloy walls breathing faint pulses of green and violet light. Stars spilled across the panoramic canopy, stretched wide in every direction. Behind them, Proxima Centauri B, the twin suns, and all they had built. Ahead, Earth, and whatever remained of it. Ayla stood at the helm, her fingers resting lightly on the interface. Beside her, Eddie sat forward in the co-pilot's seat, legs bouncing, eyes darting across the shifting projections, dancing across the glass.
This place is insane,
He whispered.
I still can't believe it's real.
From the ship itself came a calm, omnipresent voice. No avatar, no hologram, just a presence that filled the dome like a breeze.
Captain Janeway,
Said Orion, the Cygnus Array's onboard intelligence.
fleet directives have been synchronized. All systems are optimal, awaiting primary orders.
Ayla took a deep breath.
Hide the Driftfall and the Nomad Ray. Park them in the lunar shadow behind Proxima Centauri B's fourth moon. Engage stealth veiling, no signal beacons, and in defensive status.
Acknowledged.
Orion replied.
Activating orbital cloak. Both vessels will remain undetectable to all known spectrum and gravity scans. Status: concealed and secure.
Eddie leaned toward the canopy, squinting at the flickering dots marking ship positions.
So they'll just float there? No one can find them?
Not unless we tell them where to look.
Bob interjected from the rear systems console, his voice dry but confident.
They're ghosts now, sleeping giants with better shields than your average doomsday bunker.
Ayla nodded.
Good. Let's hope we don't need to wake them.
She turned toward the console.
Set course for Earth. Sol system. Let's find out what's left of home.
Coordinates confirmed.
Orion said.
Modified Alcubierre drive initialized. Estimated travel time to Earth: 56 hours, 19 minutes.
The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the warp core came online. Eddie could feel it in his teeth, like pressure building around his bones. The drive didn't roar, it whispered. It folded space quietly, as though the universe were tucking itself in. A soft chime followed.
Bob and Vey are now fully integrated with all Cygnus Array systems.
Orion announced.
Their authorization levels match command protocols. Subsystems are calibrated to allow independent AI override in case of captain incapacitation.
Nice,
Eddie said.
So they're co-captains now?
No,
Bob replied immediately.
we are emergency safeguards. There's a difference.
I prefer the term guardian failsafe.
VAI added, glowing slightly from the chest panel of Ayla's vest.
But the function remains the same. If anything happens to Ayla, we carry on the mission.
And the mission
Ayla said, looking at all three of them.
isn't just survival, it's recovery. Rescue if we can. We go back to Earth not just to see what's left, but to bring people here, to safety. This planet can support life. I've seen it.
Agreed?
Said Bob.
The infrastructure is here. And with access to the Driftfall and the Nomad Ray, we can support thousands.
More, if we sequence agricultural scaling correctly.
Vey added.
I have simulations. They're optimistic.
The three of them fell quiet for a moment, the reality of what they were doing finally settling in.
Captain,
Orion asked again, voice ever patient.
will the young man require private quarters?
Eddie blinked.
Wait, I get my own room?
Ayla smirked.
You're crew now. That means you get a room.
Understood.
Orion said.
Preferences.
Eddie didn't hesitate.
A bathtub, like a real one. Big enough to float in. And a window, from the floor to the ceiling if that's allowed.
Accepted.
Orion replied.
Aft quarters on Deck 3 are being modified. Viewport alignment underway. Full bathing unit will be ready before first warp drift stabilization window expires.
Eddie spun in his chair.
Yes! I love this ship.
Bob, dry as ever.
We'll see how you feel when you're the one scrubbing it.
Eddie grinned. Ayla leaned forward.
Orion,
She said.
initiate departure.
Drive active in 30 seconds.
Lights along the floor shifted. Vibration built subtly underfoot, like the air itself was preparing to stretch.
Do we want to say anything inspiring?
Eddie asked.
I've got one.
Ayla said. She keyed open the internal comms.
This is Ayla Janeway, commanding the Cygnus Array. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're going home. To see what's left, and to bring back anyone who still needs us. This isn't the end of our story. It's the next chapter. And we're writing it ourselves.
10 seconds.
Orion said calmly. A faint shimmer appeared outside the canopy, space beginning to ripple, to fold, like molten glass stretching inward.
5.
The stars pulled long like threads on a loom. Eddie grabbed the seat's armrests, wide-eyed.
3.
Bob said quietly.
Let's fold the stars.
2.
They pulsed a soft silver blue, its core humming in harmony with the ship.
1.
The Cygnus Array surged forward. Reality peeled open like paper. The sky cracked wide, deep violet and brilliant white, and the ship slipped through, folding into the wound it had made. Silent, fast, gone. Behind them, far above Proxima Centauri B, the driftfall and the Nomad Ray disappeared into the shadow of the fourth moon, cloaked, waiting in silence for the return of their captain. And far below, the crew of the New Hope stood at the edge of the camp, eyes fixed on the empty sky. Not quite sure what they had just witnessed, but certain somehow that they had just seen history begin. Thank you for listening to the season finale of Lost Among the Stars. The series returns in 2 weeks. What will Ayla and her new crew find when they return to Earth? Will Elara and John accept their fate? Please like, share, and subscribe to find out.